Blue Punch Buggy! I'm John Renton with the retro review of Lilo and Stitch from 2002. Arguably one of Disney's best animated films, one of their most underappreciated, even though it is still quoted to this very day, and really was kind of the last spark of their animated film lineup. Yes, Treasure Planet came out later in this year as well, but yeah, Treasure Planet didn't do as good. This one did better. So much so that a live-action adaptation is coming out in just over a week as I'm doing this recording. This was written and directed by Dean DeBluis, as well as Chris Sanders. Chris also voices Stitch. His name's Stitch. I can't really do the Stitch voice very well, but I'm going to try. That being said, those that have been living under a rock, here is a spoiler-free premise. You have Lilo, voiced by Daveigh Chase, who was in The Ring later, this year as well. Yeah, Samara from The Ring voices Lilo. Bet you didn't know that. I mean, some people probably did. But she is living with her sister, Nani, played by Tia Carrere, who, good grief, what a woman she is. And they're living in Hawaii. They're not doing all that well. The house is kind of in disarray. Their life is in disarray. There's a social worker named Cobra Bubbles, voiced by Ving Rhames, who is going to possibly take Lilo away, ha ho hee hee, ha, to the Hawaiian farm. But then Experiment 626, also known later as Stitch, crash lands on the planet, pretends to be a dog, and hilarity, physical comedy, destruction, and even some heartstring tugging moments ensue. They packed a lot into about 80 minutes of film here. And yeah, that's basically your spoiler-free premise if you have somehow not ever seen Lilo and Stitch. Yes, they've done some spin-offs. No, I'm not going to review the spin-offs. I only have so much time. But I decided to rewatch this, and you know what? It still holds up 23 years later. It is a whole lot of fun. It's a teetotal blast. Geez, that ugly duckling part. Why does that still get me? I don't get it. I don't get why that moment gets me. But you do have David Ogden Stiers, who voices Jumba. He was also in MASH. We love a fun fact there. I believe he actually passed away a few years ago. You have Kevin McDonald as Pleakley. And you have some other voice actors you may recognize as you check out the cast. But this obviously has the classic line, Ohana means family. Family means nobody gets left behind or forgotten. And it did have an $80 million budget, which would be $142.6 million today. $35.2 million opening, which would be like $62.7 million today. And a $145.8 million US Canada gross, which would be $260 million today, thereabouts. I mean, it just like minor amounts of dollars would like push it right to that, so I'm just going to call it. And it made $273.1 million worldwide, which would be like 480 something. So the whole point is this movie did make quite a bit. I mean, it did make quite a bit of money. The thing about it is it's still, something just very memorable. It is just very, very sweet and does have a whole lot of fun to it. I mean, I could definitely see why some people might be questioning why a live-action adaptation was needed. I, was questioning that myself till I saw the trailer. But I can watch this stuff, and even though I was 21 at the time, I can still enjoy it. And I can still appreciate what they were doing. And also, it's a bite-sized 80-minute movie. It has a whole lot of fun packed into it. And just features Stitch having to adjust to life, even though he was only ever programmed for destruction, designed by, Dr. Jumbo. And he was only designed ever to, destroy, crush, everything, that kind of stuff. He hates water, so laying in Hawaii wasn't exactly the best idea, but he had no choice. And, then you have, of course, I just like calling him the shark agent because it's just funnier to, picture that. But the captain wants to pursue him, and then you have the councilwoman. The councilwoman just reminded me of, like the one from the judge from Futurama for some goddamn reason. I don't know why. But, we do get, like, a neat little opening, introducing the characters, Dr. Jumbo and all that. And we get, Stitch acting out, and he gets captured, and they said, relax, enjoy the trip, and don't get any ideas. Well, naturally, he escapes and does what he does to get to Hawaii. And then we, see we get the scene laid with Lilo not adjusting basically to living with her sister all that well. Unfortunately, she did lose her parents in a car accident. That is referenced, it's not shown. Even though there are a few dark moments in this, it has enough of a lighthearted tone to it. I did like how Pleakley was always dressing in dragon as, I guess, something they left out of the live action one because they don't want to offend people. I mean, whatever it is, I don't necessarily think, it's neither here nor there whether they include that or not. But mind you, this is 80 minutes long, and we go 10 minutes before we get to the opening credits. Now, I kill other movies for it. There were a few that went almost 30 minutes before going to the opening credits, and I just don't quite get it, because what do you have left to show us after that? But Lilo means well, but she preferred her sister being her sister instead of having to be her guardian, shall we say. And she gets in a fight with one girl with this little luau practice thing that doesn't, the girls are kind of bullies, but Lilo doesn't exactly ingratiate herself all that well. She's listening to Elvis and everything, Leave Me Alone to Die, because she's a very, depressed kid. DeVay Chase actually played her pretty well, given how her life has gone. Read up on that. Yeah. Not exactly, a great individual right there. But then Cobra Bubbles, which, I just have to say that would just, I try not to laugh with that, but Ving Rhames voices him perfectly, and he's a social worker checking on him. Just before he arrives, Nani ends up kicking his bumper inadvertently, not realizing. And, Ving Rhames has had quite the career. Look at Ving Rhames' filmography. You have the Mission Impossible movies. You have this. You said, he was in, Dawn of the... Yeah, he was in the Dawn of the Dead remake, wasn't he? Just so many... he's been in some low-budget stuff. Who hasn't? But it's just really funny. And Lilo does some weird stuff. She has a weird design doll. She does weird voodoo stuff. Just my people need to be punished, or my enemies need to be punished. And she's acting weird for the social worker, not understanding consequences for her action. And Lilo takes pictures of random people, including this one guy with ice cream, where he can never finish his ice cream because he either gets blown off or falls off, and he's got this bad sunburn, and we can all identify there. Stitch ends up arriving. He crashes. There's a couple scenes with him and a frog. I don't know why that's funny to me. But he ends up as their dog after he's presumed dead and taken to a shelter. And, that kind of stuff is it's just funny. And I believe there was footage of a monster movie. I think it was Tarantula that was on TV, on the TV in the storefront. I think it was Tarantula. I've seen to recognize it. But yeah, he doesn't like water at all, which again, arriving to Hawaii is probably the worst because it's genetic density or something like that. And this is it's kind of funny. You see the bonding between Lilo and Stitch in a movie called Lilo and Stitch. I know, shocking. This is your badness. She has this drawing of him, and it's except for his ears at the top of his head, this is your badness level. It's usually high for someone your size. And things look bleak for Nani because she just can't hold down a job. Due in part to bosses not being understanding, and also a destructive alien genetic experiment keeps causing issues. And then Stitch, after seeing the tarantula thing, recreates San Francisco and starts stomping on it and stuff like that, which is kind of funny. And she says, no more caffeine for you. I'm going to have to drink more caffeine in your honor, Stitch. And, yeah, Pleakley wearing the wig is kind of a thing that they keep referencing. And Jumbo says, let me try it. No, it's you're jealous because I'm prettier than you. And the ugly duckling part's oh, Jesus, how dare you, Disney? God damn it. How dare you? How dare you? That's still... I don't know why that makes me tear up. I don't know. But it's just, God damn... I think we can all identify with that. But there's a side note with a guy named David, I believe. Some of these things I just kind of gloss over, but, this thing with Nani and David, where, they seem to be like the only other two adults on the goddamn island, like, that are of that age, so there you go. Why else wouldn't they hook up? Stitch inadvertently causes, like, some issues, and then he ends up actually leaving. Bubbles is, like, not too thrilled about all this stuff that's going on because he's keeping an eye on him, but then we find out why a little bit later in, like, the third act. And by the third act, I mean literally at the end. But he's like, oh, I'm lost, Stitch like that. Can't talk about that too much, or otherwise I'll start tearing up again. But then he sees that Lilo's being put upon, so he decides to save her. The blue punch buggy throws the VW bug that he just happened to get from somewhere because he's super strong. And Stitch, mind you, still feeling guilt, but realizes that Lilo is good and that he is meant for more than just destroying. And they both get captured. He escapes because he can turn himself into almost liquid, but Lilo's being taken away. The sister's upset, beating him up. It's like, talk. It's like, okay. And then she hits him again because he talks. And then, Ohana means family, this kind of stuff. And she's like all surprised that he says that. And Jumbo and Pleakley team up with them. They get in their ship and they're going to do all this stuff. They're going to battle, the giant Gantu, I believe is his name. Gapnu. The giant shark guy. I just want to go with that. I'm sorry to Stitch fans that are upset that I'm butchering names in the comments, but part of me doesn't necessarily care because it's more about these characters. So they battle on ship for a little bit, and then Stitch gets knocked down. Stitch decides a brilliant idea because it's Hawaii. Since he studied the terrain, he takes a fuel truck, gets it to an active volcano, rips the fuel truck open, and then gets shot up into the thing to basically rescue Lilo. So any gas stations that needed that fuel delivery, you're fucked. That refinery is going to be pissed off wondering how that truck ended up there. But he rescues Lilo. Everybody's safe. The councilwoman's like, okay, he has to go back. Our rules are law. But then Bubbles basically says, he references, Roswell, this kind of stuff. He's a secret agent, man. And then he says, hey, wait, Lilo, didn't you buy that thing from a shelter? And did. So she owns him. So the councilwoman's like, he is hereby just meant to stay on Earth. And it's all working out. And they surf and they do stuff and they spend holidays together. And it's fun. It's fun. It's meant to be fun. Yes, I have fun with some movies. And it's still fun after all these years. Of course, the movie's great and it gets an A+. I put a review on Letterboxd. I put all these reviews on Letterboxd. And that's probably where I'm going to be putting future reviews, because do not be surprised if you're watching this in 2026 that you're wondering why things aren't being posted as much. But that's another story for another day. Lilo and Stitch, still a lot of fun 20 plus years later. Agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Reitland. I'll see you soon.